hard head when times are tough, but I also like to think that with that comes humility and humanity, and of course that is exactly what we're going to be speaking about here today. Can I start off by echoing the very positive words, warm words about Bronwyn and the contribution you have made, Bronwyn, over many, many years on the agenda of bringing children right to the centre of everybody's attention. We've been having conversations probably for 20 years or something of that order, and I have to say, I think you will be a hard act to follow for children in Scotland, and there has been a remarkable legacy left by you in focusing the agenda on our children. I would also like to mention that I was unable to join colleagues for the dinner last night because of other business. There is a piece of work going on with the 6 cities in Scotland, with the chief execs and the leaders coming together with government ministers to look at how the cities, as the drivers of the economy, can help Scotland as a whole to make sure that we all work together, looking for the best opportunities to support everybody in Scotland, and particularly our children coming through. So apologies for not being there last night, but I would just like to echo the Lord Provost's warm welcome to you, to Edinburgh, to have this important discussion. And I would also like to thank my colleague Gillian T for leading from the City of Edinburgh Council side with our team on bringing this conference here. So I hope you have a really good day. In my 10 or 15 minutes, I wanted to reflect really on strategies, how we get them going, what do we think the differences are that we can make. And usually when I'm about to speak at a conference, I usually look at what's in the press, Sally, and see who's saying what on the television or in the radio. And the other day, the Scotsman, I'm looking here, Wednesday the 2nd of November, how timely was that? On this page, there was an article led by Jeremy Peat, a time for looking after, a time for a look at caring for children. So I'll just park that one for just now and come back to it. But I was also reading something else recently, which resonated with me, and I'll share these scrappy notes that I've written on here with you. It was reflecting on a council saying that they were ill at ease about the poor, you know, and the problems facing the poor. Concerned about begging on the street. What did that say about the economy, that people had to resort to begging on the street? Concerned about health inequalities and the availability of social housing. Concerned about the prospect of children from workless households. Concerned about the prevalence of alcohol in people's lives and the impact that had. Does that sound familiar to people? Yeah, and some of those are probably familiar with perhaps urban settings, some of it is familiar to all of us. Those comments were made, and it was about Edinburgh, and it was 1575. So, my challenge to all of us here is, you know, I worked this out last night at 1 o'clock in the morning, 535 years later, we're still discussing the same things. And I think you have a real opportunity here, we have a real opportunity here now to, you know, nail the jelly to the wall and see what we can do collectively to make a difference. The same kind of historian reflected that there were some changes, some improvements, the economy developed and so on and so forth, but it was really the introduction of the welfare state in the 20th century that really began to make a significant difference. And yet here we are, more or less a century on, still looking at the same issues, same challenges. Probably you could have a genealogical line back to some of the same families facing some of the same issues. And in terms of talking, if you like, kicking off the session today to talk about how can we develop strategies to address these issues, I think we really do have to ask ourselves, are we going to make a difference that will last? Or will somebody come and stand in front of a collective in 535 years' time and still be talking about the same issues? And I think the big question for us as professionals in this field, whether we work for statutory services, the third sector, whether we're academics, whether we're parents or children or other partners working in communities themselves, the questions that we have to ask ourselves are how will we make a difference? Referring back to this article, which is probably still available on the website if you're looking for it, Jeremy Peat was speaking about a series of discussions that had been taking place with the Allender Institute, which is fundamentally an economic powerhouse looking at issues. And he was raising some of the same issues that we've had time and time again through our own very excellent Chief Medical Officer, Sir Harry Burns, about the life chances of children in their first 3 years affecting potentially how the rest of their life goes. And we've all seen the graphs of the development of children's brains in families where they experience domestic violence or alcohol abuse or drug misuse or whatever it is. And yet we still keep having this discussion. I've seen those graphs repeated now over a period of probably 5 years, and we're still having the same discussion. And Harry Burns has upped the ante recently by saying, you know, there were really deprived areas in Eastern Europe who are now taking over Scotland in terms of life chances, longevity, improvements to the, if you like, base level of opportunity for children. And I think we have to ask ourselves, in Scotland, which is still a wealthy nation, it's a powerhouse of the economy, it's a nation that can do well and can do better if we all work together. Why is it that we're lagging behind those other countries who have started off from a much lower baseline? So we've got some really hard challenges to ask ourselves about. And I think the challenge really that brings it home to me is, if we can't make a difference in our positions of leadership, who can? Who can bring people together more than we can? Who can understand the issues more than we can? Probably the people living in those lives themselves, the children who are having those experiences, the parents who are struggling, the families who are maybe facing difficulties with their own pressures through the recession. So I would commend you to read this article. It refers to work that's being done at Oxford University, which very much reflects the kind of thing that Harry Burns has said to us. Wouldn't it be great to come back to this room or a similar room next year, reflecting on the work that we've done over the course of the 12 months that follow on from here, say actually we have made a difference. And some of the things I would like to challenge us to think about in working towards that difference, and clearly we have made differences over the last 535 years. I see our Medina has joined us, and I'll have to explain my comments about 535 years in Edinburgh. And very good welcome to you, Councillor McLaren. One of the things that strikes me, we keep talking about partnership, we keep talking about collaboration, we talk about understanding the root causes of the challenges that we're facing, and we talk in the world that we're working in about the pressures of the economy and the way we work together and how difficult it is. I actually think that to some extent we should put our financial challenges to one side. I think we should gather together in a movement for mass and extreme collaboration. I think we should put aside our power struggles within organisations, and I think, you know, some of us hold the purse strings, others would like to be supported better. At the end of the day, whether we're in councils or whether in the voluntary sector, local organisations, social enterprises, police, fire, health, whoever we are, we've all got a responsibility and an accountability to ask ourselves if we can move things on and make that difference. Some of the things that we will all be very aware of, and interestingly today is the funeral of Campbell Christie, who was the author, the leader of the group which led to the Christie report. That report was hailed, if you like, as a blueprint for the future of public services in Scotland. And when it was published, people kind of drew their breath and said, some said, well, I was expecting a blueprint and I didn't get a blueprint. What I think we got was a philosophical treatise about how we can do things better, focusing on early intervention, targeting the scarce resources we have. And I have to say, I am much, much happier having a philosophical treatise about how we can have a better conversation leading to better services and better outcomes than a blueprint which we all get squeezed into. That Christie report gives us the opportunity to learn from it, to take strings of thoughts and explore them further ourselves with the appropriate partners, with the appropriate people we're serving. And it gives us the opportunity to develop services to fit the needs that we see before us. So for one, I think that the Christie report gives us a good, if you like, base commentary for us to work from. It's almost disappeared into the ether as far as I can see. And what I would invite you all to do is go and get your copy of the Christie report, have a look at that, reflect back on the things that I've just raised about Edinburgh in 1535, and asking ourselves, how can we make that difference? How can we change so we're not coming back in a year or 100 years or 500 years to ask whether we've been able to change the direction of life for some of our young people. All of that, I think, will give us the opportunity to do more if we talk in terms of co-production, but not only co-production amongst professionals, but co-production with the children, with the parents, with the grandparents, with the carers and so on, who look after youngsters on a daily basis. They will understand what they're facing in their lives much better than I will, because they're living it day and daily. And I think we have to get down at grassroots level and see children's lives through children's eyes as best as we possibly can. There have been some statistics that have shocked me in my working life, one of which was when I went to Aberdeen to work as Chief Executive, the City Council was in some considerable difficulty, and it was perceived as a wealthy city, and Aberdeen is, in business terms, a wealthy city. In fact, North East of Scotland produces 28% of the UK's corporation tax. Bet you didn't know that. So, question, why is it that there is a greater proportion of the working population in Aberdeen on lower wages than many other parts of Scotland? There are some big divides in that society. Why is it that there are 4,000 children carers in Aberdeen? There will be equivalent numbers in Edinburgh, in Glasgow, proportionately equivalent numbers. That is a really shocking statistic for a really, a powerhouse of an economy in the 21st century to have children. Story I was told when I met the individuals concerned, there was a 3-year-old child climbing on a chair, climbing on the worktop, making a cup of tea for a child's mother in the morning. That, I believe actually in introducing risk and risk management, but that actually is a risk too far. And these are the kind of issues that we don't see when we go about our daily lives necessarily. I think we have to get behind the statistics to see the stories that lie behind. The other thing I wanted to mention about Aberdeen and moving forward. Aberdeen City Council yesterday published their draft budget for next year. Hurrah, good for them. They have taken 20% out of their expenditure. I certainly did when I was there, so back to the tough decisions bit. Services actually improved. The City Council became more agile. One of the things I would like to encourage us to do when we're talking about collaboration, if you like, radical transformation, managing change, is don't be hung up on the numbers game. Don't be hung up on the money. Clearly we need resources to do what we have to do, but things can improve even if we have to live within reduced resources. And if we could, Gillian reminded me of this, very non-technical audio-visual aid. If that's 100% of what we're spending now, and we take off 25%, our habit has been to spend all of our effort focusing on how we get rid of the 25%. I would encourage all of us to put all of our effort into wondering how we can spend the remaining 100%, which previously was 75% of the whole. And I think that if we can put all our effort into what we can do, rather than all of our effort into what we can't do, we will have much better days at work. People will stand a chance of having much better service outcome or life outcome from the work that we do. And it will change our, I suppose, dismal prospect into a much more optimistic prospect, and that refers right back into Frohman's haiku this morning. I think we can talk about localism, we can talk about total place. All of these strategies are the kind of things that will help us to deliver better outcomes, a bigger impact to the kind of effort that we collectively make. But most of all, we have to do it in consultation with people who receive our services, and who themselves can be co-producers and can lead to services being delivered in a more self-determined way. So I would like to pass it at that. We've been given strict instructions by the leader of the orchestra this morning. Just to stir up, if you like, the strategic thinking just a bit. Challenge ourselves. How can we do better? How do we know we're doing better? Look at the statistics. It's not all about statistics. Look at the faces that are in front of the statistics and see if we can improve on 535 years of history. Thank you very much.